Welcome to Turn Right Machine Works. My name is Keith. Alright, we got that single stem rudder out of the way. And Prue had a strut here to go with that rudder that I misunderstood him in having the importance that comes along with it. I'm sure how many out there have have had a customer that wants to make up the order how you do things in your own shop, even though he's not the machinist. Raise your hand. Okay, so what we're doing is we're going to go ahead and do the strut, but and I'm going to continue on. I mean, we'll get to the other two rudders with the pintle and the main shaft, and we also have a skeg with a removable pintle support that will play along with one of the rudders there. But right now we have another item, and I'm going to show you another advantage of having the V support. We haven't changed our center line with our piece here, so we're going to be boring this for a cutlass bearing, and this whole body here gives the alignment of the whole project. This bore and the casting, these castings are really clean and surprising. There's no rocking or whatever. These things are pretty well straight in line here. So I take a screw jack and I set it underneath here, and I just kind of, that way I know it's semi-level, looks good on your machine. Appearance more than anything else. And all we gotta do is hold it down. Sometimes I need to support my screw jack with other flat stock, just to like a riser block. That's all I'm using for. Again, these two come into play so that we can clamp down on it. Either side, I can come in here, or I can come in over here. Most of the time I like it to be out on that side. The working side I like to have as simple as possible. Not that it's real important, but sometimes I just bring a clamp over here just so that this doesn't tend to vibrate loose or anything else. If these are happening to hold this, it still keeps a positive pressure on the screw jack. This is all going to be done with a boring head. We're going to grab the boring head and a Chandler boring head, and we're going to bring it over here and we're going to get it set up. We'll bring the camera in a little closer so that you can actually see the setting up of the boring head from this angle over here. Okay, I got to fire up the machine here. And first we're going to, this is our Chandler, number 2.356. It's a duplex. We're going to give ourselves some room in here. And then this just tightens up with the drawbar like the rest of our holders. Alright, then I put it in neutral so I can spin this around. The diameter that we cut before is probably somewhere around 1 3/4 inches, something like that. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring this in, and then I'm going to raise it up and down until I'm circling a sweep by eye using my tool bit. Pretty much without doing any adjustment. And then I'm going to look at how close it is and how much travel I have here, because I like to keep it in a certain range when I'm using it in the slide here, just to offset the weight of the head and the bar here, just so it's more in balance. So we bring this over, and we let her down, and we bring her in some more, about 1/8 of an inch at the bottom there. Alright, it's actually looking pretty close to its sweep there, but I think I'm going to bring the slide back this way just a little bit And then I'm gonna grab the spanner wrench and we're gonna adjust this in and out to where we're in that range. Okay, the bearing we're gonna be putting in here is, let's see, it's about 7 inches long there, 7 inches. Yep. So from our tool bit to here, it's just about 7 inches here. But our overall length of the barrel, which is like 16. Okay, so we're gonna have to go just a little bit more than that. We're gonna be boring both sides because we need the bearing to fit on one side, but we need a certain amount of water clearance around the shaft on the other side, and a true bore running with the bore on this side here, because the inside is not 100% concentric with the outside of the casting, but it will be when we're done. So I'm gonna have to come over this a little bit. So, you know, I'm looking at the height of this and the height of my tool bit here, and I like it to stick it out a little bit farther. So I'm just gonna move it out here, and I have another bit here that's a little bit longer. So we won't have to do this nut here with the spanner, because I'm gonna put a longer bit in here, and we're actually gonna be backing up a little bit. Let me check here. For the first initial cuts, I think that's good enough on the... Alright, and measure up from the bar here. Alright, we're going to let it sit up there like that. Alright, and then we double check this sometimes. Sometimes we remove our cutter. Now we'll undo our 2 clamping screws here, and we can adjust our head in and out. And we're also sighting down here. It does look like our tool bit is twisted a little bit, and I like that. I eventually would like to make a larger diameter bar with a little bit longer length, at least an inch or so, and a little heavier. We do have a crack in our piece here. It was from get-go, we've had it with a little crack in there. But I bought this used. It was all in parts, and I kind of made it what it is today. Okay. Okay, we're sweeping a bit around and just eyeballing our opening here. Alright, I'm going to fire it up and just take a light skim and touch so I can see the ring of cut on there. Move a few of these things out of the way. I got you looking at it right now, and I'm just slightly cranking this in by hand just until we touch. Okay, we're barely rubbing over here. Nothing over here on this other side. It's cutting from like there. And I'll get my mirrors so we can see up there. But for right now, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to set about a 50 thousandths cut here. Loosen the 2 lock pieces there. Got my mag base set up here on the slide, and then I just have the finger coming in and pointing in on a straightened axis of the travel. and that's how I use my indicator here to go ahead and set my my depth in here. And when it goes away, which means the depth, because I got it on the tool bit side, it's actually reading the depth of the cut. So there's 25, so that'll be 50 thousandths off the diameter theoretically, if it was true round hole going to the next size hole. All right, so 25 per side, but we're just touching here. We don't know what it's going to get in there. Sometimes we end up having more cut, and I got to back it out and decrease the amount that I'm taking, but sometimes it'll run in fine. This will give us our initial first pass, and then when we get done with this pass right here, we're going to be setting up the travel stop so that we can feed this out and let it run, and it'll get to the end of the cut and it'll stop in case we're doing something else in the shop here. Put it back in gear, and we're going to lightly touch by hand. Okay, you can see it cutting here from about right to there and right up to about here. So we're sweeping almost a half a circle there. All right, we're gonna this is gonna be our first pass. So we're just gonna go ahead and we're gonna set our dial. We gotta back up our feed here. All right, there you go. When you're not feeding, you'll have a chatter on the bar. Manganese bronze is a tough material, and it doesn't cut quite like brass, but it doesn't cut quite gummy like Manel does, but it is a stout material, and you'd almost think you're cutting steel sometimes. And sometimes when it's close to the sand surface or the casting surface, you do have sand and residue in your bit, or fighting on your bit, and you do get abrasion of your tool bit, and sometimes you have to resharpen it after your first initial cuts because of the quantity of sand at the surface you're cutting, especially when you're going in and out. Some part of the tool bit is always touching the wall that the sand sat against or was holding back the bronze material. All right, we're gonna let that run, and we'll come on back when we get to the full depth there. Okay, just shut this off for a little bit. All right, just before it stopped, I brought this block up here. When it looks eyeball close, I go ahead and I just slide it up close to it, and then I just lightly cinch it down. Well, it's stripped the handle out at this travel distance right here. Now what I do is I kind of just double check everything here. I got about 1.5 inches of travel there. I don't need to go the whole 1.5 inches, but you know, 1 3/8 or something like that would definitely give me the depth and maximize without having any incidences in here. Actually, this is 1/600. All right, so what I'll do is I'll just take my scale here, and I'm going to go ahead and extend this out 1.5 inches past here, and I'm just going to hold this by hand once I get it settled. There we go. Okay, that way I can bring it back here. I'm tightening it up just shy of that. It looks like maybe 50 thousandths shy. All right, now I'll be able to go ahead and fire it up, turn on the feed, re-engage the handle, and then it should come up that additional 1.5 inches and automatically trigger out the handle before we get into a contact situation right here. Okay, it's getting close. I think looks like about 1/4 inch in between here. You see the handle starting to pivot out on the ramp here pretty good. there we go. Okay, let me rotate this around. I'm going to put it in freewheel so that... Okay, 100 thousandths. Same thing. This is square face here. Okay. So we're safe to say that we've got plenty of clearance in at the end of our cut. All right. So now we can just back it out. That will repeat at that same depth every time now. We're going to rotate this around. We'll set up our indicator. That just pops down in the same spot. We can re-zero it, or you can work off of the number that you're already at. We'll take another 25. If this bar was a little thicker, I could juice it up a little bit. Once we get a round cut all the way, sometimes I do increase it a little bit, maybe 50 thousandths aside. All right, and we locked that down. We did that, all right. We just double check. Back in gear. All right, engage it. Pretty well cutting all the way around. You can still hear it's a little thicker of a cut on the side that it was already cutting, but it is barely skimming the low on the other side. Now after this cut, I'm going to take and I'll measure this height here. I'll measure this height down in here, and I'll make a determination if I want to lower it or raise it to center that more up and down. It already looks like we're pretty well even here and even on the other side there. Okay, we're right on size. This is the bore the bearing's going to be in. That's critical. We just finished. We went in and we had just a couple thousandths to go, and we went in with a spring cut just because there's so much spring on the bar. If we get used to using this bar here, and the finish is just slightly rough. It's not extremely smooth out here, but it smooths out as it goes in there. But it's going to be firm enough and a press fit for the bearing, and that's what we want. He gets 2 holes out here. We'll drill and tap for 2 set screws that come in on the side, but right now we're going to go ahead and turn this around. Okay, and we just set our clamps off to the side. Okay. I'm not going to be able to get a clamp underneath there on that side there. We're going to let it roll like that. Okay, now we're going to bring her back into close to our cut here, and we're going to back off our depth. Our first cut will just be by eyeball, because all we got to do is rough this out so that we have enough water clearance for the shaft. Okay, we're going to let this feed through, and we'll take it out to the diameter that we're looking for. Okay, we're going to pull the boring head out of the way and bring our table back a little bit, and then we're going to go ahead and pull this piece off of here and move the table this way here. We're going to set this up on a drill press here, and we got a hole pattern of countersunk screws that hold the skeg on. 2/4 20 set screws in on the side where the bearing's going to get pressed into, and then this piece will be done.